welcome to our second week of Guardrails. Let me start with this question. Have you ever met anybody that you regretted meeting? Don't point at the people that are right next to you. That's rude. Yeah, there's somebody in your life that you may have regretted, or maybe there's somebody in your life you regret that they met. And the truth is, there's a reason for that, because the folks we've met are often the source of our greatest regret. The folks we've met are the source of our greatest regret. Now, I don't know your greatest regret, but my guess is you weren't alone. My guess is that if you could go back in time, there's probably a decision or there's a series of decisions, and you'd be like, oh, I would never do that now that I'm so much smarter and I'm so much wiser. But honestly, if you went back in time, you probably would make those same decisions, or it would be kind of like that, because you would go back in time and you wouldn't change the people, you'd change the decision. And because you wouldn't change the people, your life, if you went back in time, would be roughly the same. And so today I'm going to teach you something, and we're going to go through this. And let me tell you, these guardrails that we're going through, they make life so much easier. We're going to talk about some relational guardrails we can put in our life. And I'm telling you, this is life-changing stuff. So just a little bit of review. Let me go back and kind of start where we were last week and just define a guardrail. A guardrail out on the highway is a system designed to keep vehicles from straying into dangerous or off-limit areas, right? And I don't know if you've noticed this, but ever since we started this series, I just noticed them. They're everywhere. Like we would all stray off the road constantly if we didn't have these guardrails. The purpose of a guardrail is to direct and protect. So it's not just to protect you from oncoming traffic. It's also to, not to get too devotional early on, but it's to keep you on the right, what? Path. Yes, that's what a guardrail does. And without it, we wouldn't always be. So they direct and they protect. The thing about a guardrail, and this is probably the best part of them, is they are located well within the safety zone. It's not after you've already made a boo-boo. It's not after you've already gone off the side of a curve. It is well within the safety zone, because even on the road, we realize it is necessary to have margin between us and the danger zone. So by the time you slam into a guardrail, you haven't actually entered into the danger zone. You have just come close. Ultimately, the purpose of a guardrail is designed to minimize damage. So if you've slammed into a guardrail, your airbags might have deployed. You might end up in the hospital, but you didn't end up in the morgue. Things could have been a whole lot worse. We're talking about how we don't just need those on the highway. We need those in our life. We need those things in our life that get financial guardrails, relational guardrails. We need things that are inside the safety zone that are wise for us to do to keep us from getting off the path and straying into the danger zone. Now, as we talked about last week, you're going to get pushback because culture, or the people in this world, culture doesn't encourage guardrails. Thing is, nobody likes rules, right? You don't like rules, I don't like rules. And when I find that somebody else has rules in their life that they live by, I have a choice. I could either choose to adopt those rules, or I could talk them out of theirs, right? And many times in culture, people are like, well, I don't want to adopt a bunch of rules in my life, and so I'm just going to talk you out of your rules. You feel better, I feel better. Everybody's better if you don't have rules in your life. So culture doesn't like guardrails, but culture is perfectly okay with painted lines. Culture is content with painted lines. Yeah, you got to live, you got to be wise, you got to do things, but let's not get really intense about how you're going to live. So people are going to push back on this, but as I said last week, I want to reiterate again, your life gets so much easier, as I'm going to talk about. It gets so much easier when you establish for yourself, not because anybody's making you do it, not because your parents are making you do it, or your pastor's making you do it, or laws are enforced in your life. This is just you going, man, I want my life to be easier, and so I'm going to set up these guardrails that direct and protect my life. Life gets so much easier, and we'll talk about that a little more today. The guardrail we're going to talk about today comes down to your friends and your associates, the people in your life. We need guardrails when it comes to the people in our life. Now, here's the temptation, and I want to talk you out of this. A lot of you are going to view this as a really great talk for teenagers and young adults, right? If you got a teenager in here, you're going to be like, are you listening to this? Because this is so good. Your friends are so important. You're going to have that temptation to do that. But I want you to, don't think of it through their lens. Yeah, it's good for everybody in the room. But this is good for you. And I'm telling you, the content that we're going to talk about today, everybody needs to think through the people that are influencing their lives. I'm telling you, people who are middle-aged, right? I'm talking about middle-aged guys. You need to hear this. I'm talking about divorcees. I'm talking about just anybody in any stage of life. I have known 80-year-old women who were sweet, nice people, but they hung around bitter old hags. And because of that, what did they become? They became bitter old hags. So I'm telling you, this isn't a talk for teenagers. This is something in every stage of your life you need to be constantly evaluating who your friends and your associates are. Now, the pushback on this is going to be this sounds awful judgmental. Because you're going to be like, oh man, all the people in your life, and you're looking at these people, and aren't you judging the friends? And everybody makes mistakes, right? And I want to tell you, no, we're not being judgmental. That's not what this is about. This is about using good judgment. Right? Now, let me explain the difference between the two. Judgmental is when it's all about them. When you're pointing your finger at them and you're going, okay, well, here's what you're doing wrong, and this is what this person's doing wrong, wrong. And when you're being judgmental, you're essentially acting like a what in their life? You're acting like a, starts with a J, yeah, judge. It's a judge in their life. The first service didn't get that. Good job. You're acting like a judge in your life, and it's all about them. Good judgment, on the other hand, it's not about them. Your point isn't to condemn them or judge them. It's all about you. This is a you thing. This is what the wisest possible thing for you is. There's a big difference between judgmental and good judgment. We're just talking about good judgment today. Now, I want to talk about this. We all have one thing in common. We were all kids. Right? Whether you're old or young, we all have this in common. We were kids and we had parents, and some of you had parents, if they loved you, and I know that's not the case for everybody, but if they loved you, your parents were probably paranoid. Yeah. Like weird paranoid. I remember thinking, man, you guys just need to relax. Just chill out. You know, they were like, who are your friends? Who are you spending a lot of time with? Who are you with? That was always the question. It wasn't always like, what were you doing? The bigger question was, who are you with? Who are you with? And so your parents might have been like mine, where they took big steps in order to get you away from people that were influencing your life in a negative way, and you were just like, relax. My parents actually moved. This was a big part of the reason they moved. When I was 16, they moved from northwest Nebraska to Carlsbad, New Mexico, to get me away from my friends, right? Little did they know I was the bad kid, right? And so we just ruined some lives in New Mexico is all we did with that. But no. No, your parents might have been like that. They were paranoid. Now, most of you in here, you've grown up, and now you have kids, and you are a parent, and now you are paranoid-er because you have the internet. And my parents might have guessed about who my friends were, but you can go online and you can stalk your kids' friends. And usually by the time you meet one of your kids' friends, you know everything about it. You know who their parents are. You know how they feel about Obamacare. You know everything about, the kids in your life. And so you are paranoid. And so you begin to have that same conversation, old as the world, right? You begin to have that conversation with your kids that your parents had with you, and the conversation ends with them saying what? You're so judgmental, right? And you respond with, no, I'm exercising good judgment, right? And it's a tale as old as time. And we keep having that conversation. If you're a teenager in the room, you're going to have kids one day, and you're going to have that same conversation with your kids. Good luck. It's so important to understand. Now, here's the reason we had this conversation with our parents, and here's the same reason we have it with our kids, because we know this, and this is true. Our friends determine the direction and quality of our lives. Our friends determine the direction and quality of our lives. That's just true. And we might think, no, but I don't act like they do, or I'm not the same person. I hang around with them, but I'm not the same person. And I just want to show you, no, you become who you're with. The people who you surround yourself with now, that's the person you will become. Our parents had that conversation with us. We have that conversation with our kids. But now I want to approach it from this. I don't want just the experience of being a kid or a parent. I want you to understand there's actually something that happens neurologically. There's a guy by the name of Moran Cerf. He is a neuroscientist who studies brain waves, but in a specific way. He studies brain waves when it comes to relational decision making. Okay? So for the last 10 years, he's been studying relational decision making and what happens neurologically when that happens. Here's the conclusions that he's drawn. The more we study engagement, we see time and again that just being next to certain people actually aligns your brain with them. So look to your left and look to your right, because your brain waves are being aligned with the people that you are next to. In fact, it's actually happening right now. I'm speaking, you guys are thinking through a process together, and you're sitting here with people that you've never met, and your brain waves are being aligned right now. He goes on, he says this, if people want to maximize happiness and minimize stress, anybody in the room want to do that? Maximize happiness, minimize stress? Yeah. We all want that. They should build a life that requires fewer decisions. The less brain power you put into decision making, the better, by surrounding themselves with people who embody the traits they prefer. So here's what he's saying. Let me dumb that down a little bit. I don't have to put any brainwave power in any given day or any given week onto whether or not I want to smoke pot. Right? I don't have to do that because I don't have anybody offering me pot. I don't have to put any brain power into that. I'm not saying I'm like just a huge, great, strong, self-disciplined person, right? If somebody came to me at the end of a long week or the end of a long day, and one of my best friends, that somebody I hang around with a lot, they smoke a lot of weed, and they were like, you want to burn one? I'm like, oh, maybe. Just to be honest with you, maybe I do. And so now I've got to put brain power, I've got to think about whether or not I'm going to smoke weed or not. I have to think about it. But I got to tell you, I don't ever have to do that. Is one thing that is not on my list to ever do because I don't have any friends that are like, I don't even know how that would happen if somebody came up. How do you ask a pastor if he wants to, hey, brother, would you like to get a dime bag? Or I don't know. I know everybody's like, aren't you worried people are going to come up to you after service? And I'm like, I'm a little worried, but I'm not going to put too much brain power in it. Anyway, so that's what he's saying. So he continues on. Over time, they'll naturally pick up on those desirable attitudes and behaviors. So he's saying, man, if you want to make fewer decisions, you want to put less brain activity into the decisions you're making, you should surround yourselves with people who have the characteristics that you want in your life, and it will be easy for you. And the same is true, that if you are around people that aren't making the right decisions or the path you want to be on, then it's going to make it difficult for you. Now, we just know this, right? It's from being a kid, from being a parent, to just like studying it from neuroscience, right? This is something obvious. But 3,000 years ago, before we even knew what neuroscience was, the wisest person in the Bible was named Solomon. And this is what Solomon said that is so simple, so perfect, and so true. Proverbs 13:20. Walk with the wise and become wise. So simple, but it's powerful. It's so simple. In fact, it's so simple that most of us already know it. It's like one of those things that's down there. I'm like, yeah, I already know that. It's way down there at the bottom of the bucket, though. I know it, though. But it's so simple we overlook it. And it's so simple that we forget that this is actually how we have the life that we want to have. Walk with the wise and become wise. He's not even saying that you need to be asking people for advice. He's just saying, just being close to them, being in proximity to a wise person will make you wise. What is he saying? He's saying wisdom is contagious. And here's what you may not even know about yourself. That's what you really want in life. You want wisdom. Like sometimes we get convinced there's other things we want. We want money. We want fame. We want success. There's a lot of things that we convince ourselves in our lives that we want. But at the end of the day, what you're going to learn time and time again is what you really want is wisdom. Because whether you have fame or fortune or whether you have all the things that you really want in your life, you're still going to be forced to make decisions. And you're going to have to make decisions for the rest of your life. Whether you like it or not, you're going to have to make decisions for the rest of your life. And so it's good for you to just know now that what you really want in life is you want to be wise. How do you become wise? Just be in proximity with people who are wise, because wisdom is contagious. Now, he goes on, he says, for, or maybe a translation you might have heard this in is but, because this is in contrast with the first part. Walk with the wise and become wise, or but a companion of fools suffers harm. Now check that out, because you would think for him to say, walk with the wise, become wise, hang out with fools, and you become a fool. You'd think he would say that, but he doesn't say that. He says this, it's much worse than that. You're not just going to become a fool, you are going to suffer harm. Why? Because you're asking them for advice? No, it's because you're around them. It's a proximity thing. You are close to fools, and because of that, you are going to suffer harm. Let me say it again, that verse right there, that's simple. That's simple, and yet you've seen yourself. You've seen yourself kind of betray this simple piece of wisdom, and you've done something. Maybe you've chosen to go with those who accept you because you're hungry for that acceptance. You've chosen to go towards friends and associates that you're like, oh, I'm just not going to be like they are. I'm just not going to do the things that they do. And yet this simple truth is just hanging around in the back of your brain. And I want to tell you, if you would live this one out, it would change your life. If you could establish some guardrails that helped you to live this out, it would change everything about you. Why? Because of this. Friends who aren't careful with their lives won't be careful with your life. We learned what the Apostle Paul said last week. He said, be careful how you live, not as unwise, but as wise. Be very, very careful. Take this seriously. Take it at least as seriously as your commute to work. Like, put a seatbelt on. Be careful with your life. If you are hanging out with people that aren't careful with their lives, it's probably because they don't even know to be careful with their lives. But they are going to destroy your life because they're not taking care of their, or to put it another way, friends who don't take care of themselves won't take care of yourself. Again, it's a proximity issue. And it's something that you need to take very seriously. Now, we're going to get into some guardrails, and before I do, I want to remind us the point of a guardrail. When it comes to relational guardrails, the point of a guardrail is to light up your conscience before we veer into the danger zone. It's for us to go, okay, wow, something's going wrong. The alarms are flashing. I need to be very careful how I proceed because I am veering into the danger zone. That's the purpose of a guardrail. So here's what I want to do. I want to go through a couple of different things. And the objective is these themselves aren't the guardrails. This is just how you can kind of think through the kind of relational guardrails that you need in your life. So here's just an example. When it dawns on you that your core group isn't moving in the direction you want your life to be moving, right? That should bother you. When I was in Dallas one time, I got on a bus. You ever been on the wrong bus before? I was going towards what I thought was another terminal. I thought I was moving towards a different direction. And actually, I was headed out to parking lot F, which stands for way the freak out there, okay? So like I'm on this bus, and I'm like, I see my destination. I'm like, the planes are over there. I want to go there, right? And I keep getting farther and farther away, and there is a sense of powerlessness that you have. I've felt that with my friends and associates before. I've just been around these people, and all of them are heading in this direction, and I'm like, but man, guys, you want to go over there? No, we don't want to go. But you sure you don't want to go over there? Nobody wants to go. And they keep moving 50 miles an hour this way, and you just keep seeing the destination of where you want to be disappear. Let me tell you, this is every day at church. No matter what church I've been at, but especially at LifeBridge, we have a revolving door. Because there's people that come in here and they go, man, I know what I want. I want to follow God. I want to read my Bible. I want to do what it says. I want to follow Him. I want to give my life to Him. I want to surrender to Him, right? But then they go home and they have that same circle. And they get on that bus during the rest of the week with their friends and associates and the people that they work with, and they're headed in the wrong direction, and they keep going, why is my destination getting farther away? And I'm not telling you what the guardrail is in your life, but I'm just telling you this. That should bother you. It should be a wake-up call to say, hey, something's wrong. You're getting in the danger zone. Next one goes like this. When you catch yourself pretending to be somebody other than who you really are. Now, we all have something in common. I said we all had in common that we were kids. This is something else we all have in common. We've all done this. We've all pretended to be somebody that we weren't, at least at some point in our life. But when you are doing this with people who are your close group, the people that are influenced, the people that are close to you, if you feel like you kind of need to take this part of your life, and I'll be honest with you, let me strike it home, the part of your life that you want to hold back is the God part. Because you can tell they're not really interested in that. And if you talk about the God part too much, then they're really not interested in you. And so you kind of splice that part out. Or if you find yourself kind of nodding your head, you ever do that? You know, when somebody says something and everybody's nodding your head and you're like, I don't believe this. Why are we doing this? Why am I doing this? I can't believe. Now I'm not saying what you need to do, but what I'm telling you is that should bother you. That's a big deal. Because you are compromising and you might be on a bus headed in the wrong direction. How about this one? When you feel pressure to compromise. When you feel pressure to compromise. When you feel pressure to be like, well, maybe you've ever said this, I'm going to go, but I'm not going to participate. Would you ever buy that from your teenage daughter, right? Why do you try to sell it to yourself? Like, I'm going to go, but I'm just not going to participate, okay? Oh, that's a good idea, honey. You know, that's really good. You just say that to yourself. Just roll your eyes at yourself when you say dumb things. But that's what we do. We have a tendency to feel ourselves compromising. And again, I'm not telling you necessarily what you need to do. I'm telling you it should bother you. It should lead you to a place where you're making some decisions that are going to change the course and direction of your life because you might be headed in the wrong direction. Now, here's why this is so important. Because tomorrow or this week or next weekend, there's going to be thousands, there's going to be millions of people that look in a mirror and they're going to ask this question: how did I get here? And I know you've probably asked yourself that question before too. You'd be like, how did I get here? Maybe you were raised in church, maybe you end up following God with your life and you're like, oh man, I'm going to do this. And then all of a sudden, you ended up where you're at. You're just like, how did I get here? How did I get here? And I want to tell you, it comes down to simply this, that you were on the wrong bus. And if you want to not be on the wrong bus, then you've got to set some guardrails up with the people in your life, because this is what's true. Our friends still, I don't care how old you are, our friends still determine the direction and quality of our lives. Now listen, when we talk about wisdom, and that's what we're talking, walk with the wise and you become wise. When we talk about wisdom, we're not talking about right and wrong. I know that's hard to understand. When we're talking about wisdom, you're not necessarily talking about right and wrong. You're talking about that edge of what's right and wrong. You're talking about, like, in some places and some people, this might be right and this might be wrong. There's some definite things that are wrong, like adultery and murder and sex before marriage and that kind of stuff. There's some definite right and wrong, but when we're talking about wisdom, we're talking about this is stuff you're navigating through, right? This is stuff that you're trying to figure out. And here's what Jesus' response was to all kind of his haters, because he had a lot of haters. This was Jesus' response. He was like, because people were going point to point with him, and he said this: wisdom is proved right by all her children. What's he saying? He's saying time will tell. It may not seem like a wise thing for you to do right now, but I can tell you, you are going to make wise decisions and unwise decisions, and then you're going to see over the course of time what the wise decision is. And he's saying, I'm telling you, I know you could push back and you could say, oh no, I'm going to keep the same group of friends, but I'm going to be different. I'm going to hang out with people that don't follow God, but I'm going to follow God. You might be able to go point for point with me on how, man, Grant, this is the dumbest thing I'm ever doing. I'm really not going to change anything. And you might be able to make an argument about how your wisdom is better than this wisdom. But I just want to tell you, time will tell. Jesus is saying what happens is you're going to make wise decisions, and then you will see the fruit of your children. And what I don't want you to do is make mistakes for the rest of your life. I don't want you to make mistakes over the next 5 to 10 years before you see the fruit of your decisions and go, oh, that was right. That was right. I should have paid attention. I should have paid attention. So here's what I want to do. I want to give you some suggestions for some guardrails. And again, these aren't actually the guardrails. This is just kind of how you figure it out. The first one, I'm going to compare it to social media. Okay, the first guardrail is kind of like this. Who do you need to unsubscribe from? So every once in a while I get these people on my Facebook feed that are just like, I'm leaving Facebook. I just can't take it anymore. And then they like leave for 3 weeks. You may have been one of those people. And it's just like, well, you don't have to do that. Do you know you can unsubscribe from people? Like, maybe you don't know you can do that. You don't even have to unfriend them. You just hit the little thing up on their feed and say, I don't want to see this person's junk anymore, right? I've unsubscribed from hundreds of people. Probably some of you are in this room, right? We're still friends. Like, I didn't burn the relationship down, but like you may think that I can see your feed, but I can't see your feed because at some point I got just uninterested in what you had to say. It's probably not you. It's probably somebody else. I just became uninterested with what somebody had to say, and so I unsubscribed. Maybe you need to do that in your life, and I'm not just talking about on Facebook. I'm talking about, man, there's people that, like, you don't need to, like, not have a relationship with them anymore. You just need to really minimize the amount of influence they have in your life. So what does that mean? It means, well, you may go to work with them, but you can choose whether you want to go hang out with them. Right? They may be a family member, but you can choose how much time you spend with them. Or they might be a friend, but can I give you a really quick tip on how to unsubscribe from somebody? Just don't text them back for a while. I know it's like a jerk boyfriend move, but I mean, this is just if you just want to, like, okay, I'm tired of this person have a constant influence, but like, it's not like you're going to break off the relationship, but just, wait 24 hours before you text them back. Anyway, unsubscribe from people. There's some people in your life you need to go, okay, I'm no longer subscribing to you. We're still friends, but I'm unsubscribing. Second thing, who do you need to unfriend? Because again, this is a feature on Facebook. Like, there are a few people I've had to unfriend because I just wanted to burn the relationship to the ground. Not in a bitter way, just like, hey, you're toxic for my family, you're toxic for me, I'm just kind of done with you. This is a step that maybe some of you, there's people that are dragging you away from God, and they consistently do it, and you just need to burn down the relationship. My new favorite song is a Meghan Trainor song. I know, when you look at me, you're like, oh yeah, he looks like a Meghan Trainor guy, It's all about that bass. But anyway, no, I got in the car one day, and my girls, I've got a 17-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old daughter, and they were both listening to Meghan Trainor, and I started listening to the words of the song, No. Great song. Basically, it's about how she's found this guy who's such a moron that all he needs to know is that everything about her is no, right? So her name is, the song goes, her name is no, her sign is no, her number is no. Anything you want to ask about me, the answer is no. Well, you can imagine as a father of a teenage girl how much I love this song, right? So I'm just like going in the road, and I added it to my playlist, right? And we'll get in the car, and I'm like, okay, girls, let's go. My name is no. My sign is no. My number is no, right? Let's jam, people. Favorite song ever. So anyway, who do you need to unfriend? There's people in your life where everything about you needs to be no, right? Everything in your life needs to come down to no. You are taking me away from God. You are bad for my relationship. And honestly, I'm not trying to be judgmental of you. I'm just trying to use good judgment in my life. And the answer to you is no. Yeah, go download that song. Guys, fathers, go listen to that song. It'll become your favorite. Number 3, who do you need to follow? So I came to a place where I'm just like, man, I've unsubscribed, I've unfriended, I'm going through my feed, right? And then I actually was like, man, I need to follow the right people. So I went and following other pastors and other teachers and other people I respect, intentionally following people that I think have good things to say. And I got to tell you, I don't know what your news feed looks like, but when I get on Facebook, mine's uplifting. Mine's encouraging. I'm actually a better person when I go to my news feed than I am if I'm not. And whenever anybody says, I just can't stand all the garbage on Facebook, it's like, well, you need new friends because you've got a bad feed going on. So you need to look at the people that you need in your feed, right? And you need to think about who you're going to follow. Now, here's where the church comes into this. Essentially, what the church is, by definition, is we're a group of people that have decided to unsubscribe from the world. We're a group of people that have said, hey, we don't have it all figured out, but we're trying to follow God. So maybe we've unsubscribed, we've unfriended, and we're trying to follow God. Here's my point. When we come together, the people that you most likely need to follow are in this room or go to this church. The people that you need to be following are people who have faith. Yes, in your Facebook feed, but I'm talking about in your real life. People that when you get around them, they're wise, and just because you're near them, they make you a wiser person. So you need to ask the question, who do you need to start following? Now, you might be like, okay, I'm attending church. Well, how do I take that step? How do I connect? It's really simple. We always tell people, and I tell people over and over again, the place you need to start is you need to volunteer. You need to become a team member of something. Not because we need team members. Yes, we always need team members. But because we give you this opportunity, you get to connect with people. The people that know people, that have relationships, that are following the right people. I'm not saying we don't have some wackadoodles here. I mean, we got some weirdos. I'm not saying that. I can introduce you to a few after the service if you want to meet some real gems. Anyway, I'm not saying there aren't weirdos here, but I'm saying your chances of meeting people that are on the right path as you are here. And so make that step to volunteer. You can do that in the connection card or the info booth. Just come up and talk to one of us. We'd love to plug you in. But the point is, who are you going to unsubscribe from? Who are you going to unfriend? And who do you need to start following? Let me pray for you. Father, I pray for the relationship circles of everybody in this room. God, I pray that people in this room would be not influenced by the world, but they would be able to surround themselves, to connect with people who are drawing them closer to you. God, I pray that the decisions would be easier and the excitement of following you would be simple and easy because they would make connections with all of the right people. And I pray that in Christ's name. Amen.